You're watching Capitol Connection from the Illinois State Capitol.
It's now time for our Reporters Roundtable, and joining us this week is Jerry Nowicki, Capitol Bureau Chief for Capitol News Illinois, and Hannah Meisel, the State House Editor for NPR Illinois. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
So I want to start here. Obviously, this whole show has really been focused on the governor's race, and I want to keep that trend going. The polls over this past 2 weeks especially, have really shifted in Darren Bailey's favor. We've seen multiple now come forward with double-digit leads for Darren Bailey, a major shift from what we were seeing in mid-May. I wonder, just with the way we've seen this race evolve, Jerry, are you surprised to see it shift so quickly in his favor?
Yeah, I'm hesitant to say that anything surprises me in politics anymore these days, but it's certainly, it catches your attention when you realize that there's very little sort of Republican old guard support for Bailey, yet the polls show him doing so well at this time. I don't know if that's partly because Richard Irvin seems to have had a message that really hasn't connected with voters, or at least a delivery that really hasn't connected with voters. He'll go into news conferences and just repeat the same things over and over again. A lot of politicians do that, but I guess he kind of has done it in a way that makes him seem a little bit more standoffish than some of the more skilled at pivoting. I think the latest is his sort of a vote for Darren Bailey is a vote for J.B. Pritzker, which it may be an argument that you could do, but I think just saying it over and over again isn't going to really connect with anyone to actually get that message to motivate them to the polls. So it's just an interesting thing to watch from my perspective.
Yeah, Hannah, it seems like a real last-ditch effort from the Irvin campaign to make up that ground with that slogan.
Right. I mean, although I will say I think that this is a message that he's been saying over several months, but this is kind of the only message he has left at this point. You know, about the polls, like, I think we have to look at this in the larger context of what polls have kind of failed, especially when it comes to polling would-be Republican voters over the last 6 years. I mean, if we go back to 2016, I think that we had a lot of political, so-called experts, actual experts in their field who were kind of stumped and stupefied by Donald Trump's popularity and eventual winning the White House. I think that polling would-be Republican voters is especially difficult in terms of reaching them, identifying them, and also asking them to be honest and introspective about why they vote the way they do. It's just more difficult, and it's more nuanced than we have time to get into right now. But the other thing that I do think is surprising is that, it's not just downstate voters, because we know that in Illinois, the population is, about a third in the city of Chicago, a third in the suburbs, and a third downstate. But when it comes to Republican primary voters, a lot of those voters are concentrated downstate. But I think what's surprising is that Darren Bailey has a lot of support in the suburbs. And this is, an area that for decades was dominated by these kind of suburban moderate types who have been in leadership here in the Capitol for, many, many years. But they are losing their grip on the party, for a lot of reasons. I guess, if you want to go back to last year when we had a whole summer of school board confrontations, and in Virginia the governor's race was almost entirely a referendum on so-called parental rights. I guess you could see Darren Bailey and his fight for freedom from COVID restrictions as an extension of that, and one thing that is getting Republican voters motivated right now when there isn't a lot.
We saw the party, especially the Jim Durkins and Richard Irvin, for instance, trying to get that pull more moderate Democrats back to the moderate Republican side. As we've seen during the Pritzker administration, a lot of progressive policy passed. They've been trying to, instead of trying to move within their own side, they're trying to move that center and get more Republicans on their side. Hannah, if you embrace the more right-wing, more Trump side of the party, that seems to hurt that strategy when it is a heavy Democrat state.
Right. I mean, I think there are far fewer, so-called moderate voters to, begin with anyway these days. Like there's just far fewer of those folks who identify as moderate who are left to fight over. And so employing the 2014 Bruce Rauner strategy in the Irvin campaign, since, these are the same folks running the Irvin campaign as ran the successful 2014 Bruce Rauner campaign. It's harder for a lot of reasons, but chief among them being that the Republican political landscape has shifted so dramatically, and so I think that for Democratic voters, they see far more at stake for just in our democracy, and I think that they would be far less willing to cross over and vote for Richard Irvin, especially when he's trying to toe this line, but he's not doing it exceptionally well. The other thing is that for the party, I mean, when we talk about the Republican Party, those who are actually within the Republican Party apparatus in Illinois and those who are elected officials in this building in Illinois, those are actually two distinct sets of folks, because for years it's been moderate Republicans who have been able to win seats in the legislature, but on the state party level, those are also elected positions, but they're far less known, and the people who are motivated to run for them it's just a question of incentives, and those folks are just more politically right, and those are the same kinds of folks who everywhere around the country are pulling the party to the right, because they are getting their clues from high-level GOP operatives who see this as the only path forward for the Republican Party. So I do wonder whether how far these traditional moderate leaders in the Republican Party, in elected officials in this building, are willing to go, if they're willing to line up, behind nominee Bailey, or if they're just going to be quiet and then eventually maybe just resign their positions because they don't see a path forward for them.
What does a Donald Trump visit to Illinois do for this race? How do you see that impacting it? And not just the primary, but going forward through the rest of this campaign?
Well, I think it's something that Bailey would certainly like to trumpet to the voters, but part of it is Trump only considering it because Darren Bailey is performing well in the polls. So I think Bailey's already sort of built up that support within the people who are looking to Trump for that level of endorsement. So I'm not sure to get too much more support for him that he already hasn't cemented. But will it damage him in the general? I don't know. It's possible. A lot of people in the Chicago area don't like Trump, so it could go either way, in my opinion.
Hannah, you can imagine a political ads from both the Bailey campaign and the Pritzker campaign throughout the rest of the year having the exact same picture of Bailey and Trump shaking hands if that were to happen.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it works in both of their favors, but I think ultimately, again, I don't want to make predictions. A lot of wild things have happened in our lifetimes, but I do think that in a certain sense, the Richard Irvin complaint, after recent polling that a vote for Darren Bailey is a vote for J.B. Pritzker does have some truth to it. Not to mention, of course, this is what the Pritzker camp has wanted. The governor has spent a lot of money, funneled it to the Democratic Governors Association, which in turn has spent a lot of money making Richard Irvin and also to a lesser degree candidate Sullivan look bad, to boost a Darren Bailey, the chances of a Darren Bailey nomination. And so the two of them could go head to head.
Jerry, Hannah, thank you both for joining us. I really appreciate you being on the show this week. We'll be right back.